How are you, everybody? Wasn't really planning on doing an episode today, but I was taken away by this piece of music. It's something I've heard infinite times, but sometimes it can just grab you by the throat, and this is a throat grabber of the highest degree. It's, of course, Clifford Brown and Max Roach, the record we were talking about in the last episode on some level, but the transformative power of, I love the old Emersy, Peel, it's ubiquitous with old Emersy's, but the power of jazz to transpose a piece of music is unparalleled. It's like reinventing a Michelangelo piece. You know what I mean? Taking David's statue and changing its reality. We talked about I'll Remember April on the last episode and the many versions of that great song. We're talking about Cole Porter's here. What is this thing called love? And the nature of that song, the title of the song, how it's going to normally tend to lead any listener to that piece of music, it's far removed from the experience of what these young black men state on this here record in probably 1955 or 6. I think it might be 56. Towards the very end of Clifford Brown's life, sadly, Sonny Rollins has taken the chair of Harold Land, and Land goes back to the West Coast and does his own thing. And Rollins is kind of hungry. He's been working with Miles and some other things at Prestige, but this was a new opportunity working next to the greatest talent in jazz, Clifford Brown. And so what is this thing called love? And in most contexts, it's a song of joy and refrain and romance and that kind of emotional context. Here, it's put into a whole new setting. And it literally feels like the simmering of fighter jets on the deck of a carrier. And the opening moments here, they're kind of firing those engines. Ron's like, Clifford's just rolling. It's just a brief respite of opening up the engines, getting the fuel lines flowing. And the band will hit a punctuation here and state the announcement of takeoff. And that means the planes kind of start, there's that announcement of takeoff as the band kind of stays together, a bit of a theme here. And then we're going to have Clifford Brown barrel roll into the sky here. And Rollins has a little intro here himself. And they're both kind of getting their engines going here, rolling down the deck. Okay? And now Clifford's about to really take off here. He's barrel rolling. The G-force is strong with this one. He's going into the atmospheric expression of just incredible power, focused emotion. There's nothing like Clifford Brown in music. He's such a joyous expression of extreme velocity and viscosity. He's so delicate and precise, yet so enunciated and punctuated. Such strength, Armstrong, but with more acrobatics, but always with Parker's melodic underlay. He's just a real special talent. And Brown is flying around the deck of the carrier, and now Rollins takes off. It's a bit of a smoother ascent as he rides up. And Rollins is young, and you can tell in the shadow of this man not much older than him, if Clifford even was a senior, it wasn't by much. Clifford was a young man, 26 when he passed, I think. What a tragedy. But Rollins is in awe of who Clifford Brown was becoming in the jazz industry, and it propels Rollins. And there's a hunger and a danger to Rollins here. When he's playing with Brown, he's very aggressive and on point. it gives away to the navigation of Richie Powell. And Powell's going to do some coordinating. He's doing some calculating. He's figuring out the coordinates of our next strike. And so we're kind of in the subtle moment now as we've left the flight deck, we've left the area of our mothership, and we're now looking for the enemy. And then George Morrow will take over here on the base in a minute. And Morrow will bring us into a kind of a steep climb where the engine's almost struggling. But we're looking for that vantage point so we can find the enemy. And then the band kind of comes back in for a moment as we take formation. And then Max Roach unloads the cannons, unloads the machine guns and the Stinger missiles and the chaos of the explosion. There's a militancy, there's an urgency, there's a sincerity, a desperation in this music. And we're getting all of that emotion from a song called, what is this thing called, Love? That's jazz in a nutshell. That's the aha moment. That's the, like, I'm transposing the meaning of your art to adjudicate my situation, my feelings, my emotional outpouring. I can't replicate your initial emotional context. I probably had never even been in that frame of mind. But I'm going to borrow your art. I'm going to reinvent it to apply my situation to. And so we're taking a song let's blow some shit up, Max. Let's blow some stuff up here, Max. It's just inspiring to hear how jazz functions. It takes your art form, your instruments, and I'm going to strip away all of your context and reapply my identity, my personality, my experience. And I'm going to outpour that emotional context into this art form, transforming its meaning on every level. Because this is no longer what is this thing called love. This is what is this thing called war. That's an important thing to understand. Jazz is transformative. That's the entity of the music itself. Just sail. I hope this doesn't get taken down because I played a lot of the music on this. It's just important to get that aha moment. I can replicate the initial context of a piece of music if I can relate to it. Or I can just take that framework, that lovely piece of art you did, and I'm going to put some flourishes all over it, reinterpreting everything that the initial piece of art might have been about. Because there's very, very little in that rendition of that piece that speaks to me about what is this thing called love. There's conflict in there. There's tension and resolve in there. There's aggression in there. There's an incredible explosion of energy. Not the refined contentment of a man saying, what is this thing called love? It's more, motherfucker, I don't even know what love means. I've never seen that. I guess I could try to get there, but I don't know nothing about it. So I'm going to mess this up here and throw a whole bunch of stuff at the wall, see what sticks. And jazz allows me to go, thank you. Oh, I feel better now. And the empathy of the listener on our end of the line, if we can recognize that dynamic, they weren't really trying to channel what is this thing called love. I mean, and a guy like Ben Webster come along and he could give you that. You know, he'll play it in a lyrical way. And it's not like they weren't playing lyrically, but they were playing aggressive. And there's very little need to try to delve into the lyric content of that re-expression of that piece of music. Because the lyrics were totally discarded. The initial meaning was dismissed. The framework exists in order for us to draw new art upon. And that's the essence of jazz. And that's partly why compositional jazz struggles to move me in the same way. Because there's rigidity in composition. And there's fluidity in the reinterpretation of other people's composition. I'm willing to take liberties. Even a guy like Mingus or Ellington, there's limits to how much you can improvise on top of my composition. My ego will restrain that need on some level. When Clifford Brown says we're going to do Cole Porter, the rest of the band starts clicking their chops and going, ho, 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 we're going to mess this one up. We're like, oh, how about we triple time that shit? How about I put some thunder down on the bass? How about we take off on the flight deck, Rollins and Clifford together, and assault enemies? That's powerful stuff. That's powerful meaning. And that's something that so lacks in so much of the insight that people tend to want to share on jazz. And I don't think people are grasping that condition, that almost salvation of an honest place to express myself. It's very valuable. You know what I mean? It's therapeutic to get on that sofa and vent. And jazz is all about that venting. And it's all about, what is that thing called love? I don't know. I got some love for you. Let me put a little thunder and lightning into that, because now I feel free of what vexed me. And without that context, I don't think we really ever hear jazz. I mean, we don't ever feel it, that's for sure. You can hear virtuosity, you can hear tempo, you can hear melody and rhythm, you can hear harmony. Those things you can hear. But to feel it, you have to get that in context. The liberating feel of, man, there was no limits on what this arm division can do right here. And when we hit that flight deck, look out. When I barrel roll, you're going to feel those G's. And when I unload my machine gun cannons, I'm going to blow some shit up. Max, Rollins, Morrow, Ritchie, and of course the great Clifford all had their assault weaponry armed and loaded. And it wasn't a hate-filled message. It was just a message of aggression and how we're not going to tolerate this condition. And I want to free myself of how this weight is on me and find a new place in my soul, my consciousness, and my spirit, in my physical realm. This all helps me get recentered and reconstitutes myself to handle the world I live in. That's the power of great art. The power of great art is able to walk into your life and help you reassemble some semblance of sanity to allow you to cope. There's a lot of madness in artists. There's a lot of chaos in the minds of the great talented sculptors and the painters and the musicians. And the music helps solve some of that chaos. And the great reinterpreters in jazz, it's a Pandora's box. And how I feel right now, that immediacy is the only vehicle I'm capable of expressing your piece of music in. Unless I go into it with the headstrong condition of I want to try to redo this like it was written. But on some level that almost ceases to become jazz. Jazz is that powerful emotion that's emoting my emotional experience through improvisation. And that's so immediate that it provides therapy for the player and for the listener who has an empathetic ear to feel, not to hear. So that's the throat grabber for you, Clifford Brown. He grabs my throat as much as anybody. I mean, I could probably charge this man with assault. He's grabbed my throat so many times. Y'all be great. We'll talk to y'all soon. Have a great day. Peace.